Stacey Waters, President of SW Retail Advisors and a CNBC contributor. Patrick Armstrong is still with us as well. It's interesting to see retail sales here in the UK, and just picking up on that number there, a little bit stronger. The Olympics having no impact. This is July. I mean, obviously the Olympics really got going in August. What's your own view of actually what's happened? Because Westfield and Stratford are saying actually it's been amazing. We have 10% of our traffic 10% of the year's traffic in 2 years, and of course the West End saying it's been absolutely dead.
Right, I think that's exactly the story here. So of course Westfield did great because you had to get through Westfield to go to the Olympics, so they picked up some traffic there. But if you look at the West End, the first weekend, the opening ceremony, they were talking about traffic down double digits. So I think people were scared out of town. And clearly that hit retail. As you went through the Olympics, the second weekend traffic wasn't as bad. It was probably down low single digits, and then it picked up as people came back into town. So we'll still see with August what the real impact was.
Because if anything, August should be stronger than July.
It should, and the other thing to think about is the weather. I mean, we've had a slew, 2 months it's been raining. Umbrella sales were up 200% in the last couple months. So if you think about that, the weather should certainly help clear out some of those clearance items that we've seen.
And we should mention too, let's keep an eye on what's happening in gilts and in sterling, because it wasn't just that the July figure is better than expected. We had upward revisions to the last couple of months, to June at least. So there seems to be some degree of strength to perhaps the UK consumer that maybe jives with what we've seen on the employment data, if not in the overall kind of growth figures.
I think so, and I also would think about the level of promotions that we saw in June and July. They were very high. I mean, if you weren't 50% off the month of June, you weren't in the game. So I think some of them that promoted early did better, some of them that waited longer really paid the price, but I think it's promotionally driven.
Yeah, did we get a lot of, because I was looking at that in the inflation numbers earlier this week, did we get why inflation might have bounced back? Because we had a lot of retailers discounting earlier on.
Yes, so I think the hope was that inventories they would clear out in time for the Olympics. Maybe the fall items would be able to sell full price if they got that out. But I think in the end, the sales have just been stretched out.
What do you think of the retail sector in the UK, Patrick?
Well, one of my biggest concerns is if you look at the consensus number for retail, you're getting about 10% earnings growth, which looks quite good in this environment. But a big chunk of that is coming from margin expansion, and that's very contradictory to what you were just pointing out. If you've got to slash prices in order to move the goods, I don't see the scenario where you can have the margin improvement that's going to be needed to drive stock prices. So the domestic-orientated companies we're not attracted to right now.
We've had H&M looking at sales as well, and other clothing retailers. What's happening with them?
So H&M and Zara, the fast fashion group, has been doing really well. They've been the outliers. So H&M comps, same-store sales for July were actually up 2%. Extra impressive considering Germany is their largest European market, and the data there was down 3% for the month. So it's all about value, low price points, and newness. These fast fashion retailers can continue to bring in new items, so every time you go in, there's something fresh to buy, and that's really hurting the rest of retail.
And we've got other retailers with exposure here, Abercrombie. How are their comps in Europe compared to the States?
Abercrombie's been a disaster. I mean, the London flagship store is huge here, and you've seen sort of a declining trend. Same store like-for-like sales were down 26% internationally this quarter. So that was a huge disappointment. But I think part of the issue there is not only do they not have a lot of newness, they didn't promote. They do not put items on sale here, which is a mistake. When everybody else is 50% off, you have to get in the game. You can't maintain full prices.
Is that a global policy, is it, for them?
That's a UK stance for the Abercrombie flagship store. So Hollister promotes. In the States, they promote.
Okay, that's interesting, isn't it? I went in one of those stores once. It was so dark, I couldn't actually see my way around.
It's
so I came out again.
That's the point. They don't want the parents to know what the kids are buying.
Made it very hard to see, though. Maybe children's eyesight's better. Thanks for that, Stacey. Nice to see you. Stacey Waters, President of SW Retail Advisors and a CNBC contributor.